I'm Marcus Huyskens, a producer, mixer, engineer from the Toronto, Canada area. And today we're going to be having a look at Excalibur from Exponential Audio. Now, what is Excalibur? Well, that's a good question. And to answer it, it's actually a lot of different things. And I'm going to quote Michael Carnes here, basically saying that, well, right now, it's kind of a mystery, but in a year or two, everybody will know what Excalibur is. But in the meantime, I thought we'd have a look at two different cues and how we can use Excalibur to really highlight what's going on. So let's just close this up for a second here, and I'm going to play it from the top. Alright, so let's take a really quick look at this session here, and we'll break it down. Now this is just a really simple cue. We've got a couple different elements in. I've got a loop that I've pulled in here. I've got some percussion hits. I think it might be part of a cajon sample or something like that to kind of accentuate what's going on with the loop. Then I've got a harp that actually came from a virtual instrument, and I've gone ahead and printed that audio. I've got some basic string sections here, and then we have just one part of a vocal towards the end of the cue. If we hop over to the mixer for a sec here, you'll see that we're using Excalibur in a bunch of different ways. For instance, let's start off with the percussion. Just going to go ahead and mute all these tracks over here, which is our returns. And let's have a look at what's going on with the percussion. So here we've got a simple loop. Now with this particular loop, I basically just pulled this from the loops that come with Pro Tools. Now, due to the difference in tempo, what we ended up with was a really degraded sounding quality to the loop. Now, rather than try to do things to make that sit better, I thought, well, you know what? How about we just grab Excalibur and we almost accentuate that? So instead of trying to correct it, I'm just exaggerating everything. Now, this is pretty easy. I just basically went into the presets and grabbed something that I saw the word snare. I just moved through a couple presets, found something that worked, and I've got this particular instance of Excalibur inline. So instead of sending it to an auxiliary return, I'm using it inline on the track here. And I've made an adjustment to the master level to compensate for the volume. So let's just hear a quick before and after of that. So like I said, we're just exaggerating the degradation of the loop, and it actually works with the track and fits a little bit better. All right, next up, let's have a look at this little accentuated sample we have here. Just a simple sample. And then on one part here, I have a little bit of a build and some volume automation. Okay, let's have a look at what's going on here. So I've set up an instance of Excalibur here, and I've just named it Perc Verb, and let's have a listen to what that's doing. So again, just doing some stuff to give it some movement, let it sit with the track a little bit better. We'll bring that up. All right, next up, let's move over to the harp. I'm going to solo that. We'll bring up our mixer. And I'm not going to pay any attention to anything that's happening up here, but what we will do is we will open up the Harp Delay, which I've got set up right over here. Now I've currently got this muted. And let's bring it in now. And this is pretty simple for me to dial in. Basically all I did here is I just chose something in the keywords, and then I was just scrolling through the presets by using the arrow keys, my left and right arrows in Pro Tools. Just find something until it works. And it's worth mentioning here too that in my preferences, I've actually got my tempo control to be set by the workstation. So whatever's happening in my DAW, in this case being Pro Tools, Excalibur is going to follow that. Next up, let's have a look at the strings here. Let's bring them in from, say, this point. So you see I've got another instance of Excalibur here, and in this case, again, it's inline. And what I wanted to do here with the strings is just give them a bit of movement, just a little bit of a pulse. So again, just by going through the keywords, in this case, choosing vibrato, and then scrolling through the presets till I found something that worked, this is what we end up with. So it's just giving them a little bit of movement, a little bit of modulation here. And then again, just to glue everything together, just have an instance of R2 here by Exponential Audio, just to glue everything together. Now we'll have a listen from somewhere around here. So the interesting thing about Excalibur is, although it's incredibly detailed, and we can dive underneath the hood here and make any adjustment that we want. We've got 4 different engines: voice 1, voice 2, voice 3, voice 4. We've also got effects within each of those voices. We've got complex routing that we can do. This can also be a very simple tool that you can just work with the presets to pull up, get something that matches your program material to get a great result happening. So in this session, it was a combination of using Excalibur inline within the tracks to do some basic processing, and also we're using Excalibur as a send and return to get some global effects happening to things to add width and movement. Now in the next example, I want to have a look at something slightly different. So on this track, we've got this really atmospheric kind of organic sound. So let's take a look at something that's very different. Let's take a look at something that's completely raw and gritty, and we'll see what Excalibur can do with those tracks. All right, so now we're going to have a look at another type of session. And like I mentioned before, this is a lot more gritty, a lot more raw. It's got a really interesting vibe to it. So let's have a quick listen from the top, and let's see what Excalibur is adding to this track. All right, so you get the general vibe there. So again, same approach here. We're not spending too much time going underneath the hood and making a bunch of adjustments to create some effects. I'm basically just using my keyword searches to find some suitable presets that works with the program material. So let's have a look at some of these different elements, and we'll quickly go over the effects that I've chosen to use here. Let's start off with the acoustic guitars. From the top, okay, so we got a keyword of guitar here, and then I basically just use my shortcut arrows within Pro Tools to scroll through and find something that worked for me. Immediately, X Delay 01 popped out. Sounds great. I've got it in BPM sync mode, which is set in my preferences here. And then I've got a global instance of Phoenix that I'm using to kind of glue everything together. All right, now let's hop over to the banjo. So I've gone with a slightly different approach here with the banjo. So we'll hop over to that part there, and let's have a look at what's going on with the banjo. Gonna mute my Phoenix verb. So in this one, I've just chosen to go with a guitar vintage slap amp 2. Just added a bit of dimension, bit of depth. That slap made it pop nicely out of the mix, and I wanted something really gritty and raw sounding, so that slap just happened to work for it. All right, moving along. Next up, let's have a look at the Acoustic Lap-Steel. And we'll just scroll to the beginning here. So you can see I'm using that same slap. I just needed something to make this pop a little bit. And let's just mute that track for a second. And then put it back in. All right, now let's have a look at the harmonica. So for the harmonica here, solo this out. Let's hop back over to our mixer. Now with the harmonica, I'm sending out to the same Phoenix verb, but I'm also using that same instance of Excalibur that I was using for the main guitars. Now, if I wanted to make any changes of these voices here, I could simply go over to the voices here and solo out which voice, click on the tab, and that lets me know what I'm working on. So you can see here, this is panned over to the left. I can make adjustments if I wanted to bring that width in. I could also add the fourth voice to the mix there. If I click this tab, then I know I'm operating the parameters for voice 4. Now we can bring the Phoenix verb back in for that. Next, I'm going to hop over to the Lap-Steel. I'm going to solo that out. Let's hop back to our mixer here. Same thing's going on with this track. I'm sending out to the Phoenix verb, but I'm also using the same X delay that I've been using for the guitars, the harmonica, and the lead. And lastly, let's have a quick look at our lead guitar here. Same thing again, going out to the Phoenix verb and the X delay. Gonna just move this out of the way. Let's bring Phoenix verb back in. We've got a couple other things happening too. We've got a tambourine track here. Let's just scroll over to that. This I'm basically just sending out to the Phoenix verb. And then lastly, we got this ukulele bass. And the ukulele bass, I'm giving a tiny bit of slap, which is borrowed from the banjo, and we're also sending that out to the Phoenix verb. We'll hop over to that. You can just hear that little bit of slap coming in the back of the bass there. Nothing over the top, but it really adds to it. So it's worth mentioning here that my approach with this track was to basically use my mics and my preamps to get all the character of the instruments. So I tried to make the best choices I could, but I wanted this cue to have a really raw, gritty vibe. So let's just pick it up from here, and I'm going to let this play out. Anyways, that wraps up this demo of Excalibur. And I hope you guys got something from this, and we'll talk to you later. Cheers.